Do you ever look at your car and think it looks great, but it would look so much better in a different colour? Well, that's exactly what I did. The main challenge is that would usually cost a lot of money to do, but what if I told you we could do it for around £200? Now you might find this hard to believe, but I came across a £200 roll of vinyl wrap, which means that I could change the colour of this car for around £200 if I could wrap a car. And with no experience having wrapped a car before or any idea how to do it, I've ordered it, and that's exactly what's got me here. Today I'm going to try and wrap my BMW M3 on the drive, and this is also my first time wrapping a car, so it's not the best guy to do it, and it's probably not the best conditions either, but we'll have to give it a go and see what turns out. Absolute mess. Yeah, well, it didn't exactly all go to plan, but we'll get back to that in a bit. If you're still here and I haven't completely bored you to death, make sure that you've tapped down below and hit subscribe. Anyway, I know what you might be thinking. Why don't you just leave it alone? Well, to be honest, I just feel like it's a little bit boring, and I just want something a bit more interesting. So there's one BMW individual colour that's always stood out to me, and I've always wanted one in, and instead of spending loads of money painting it and, well, a lot of hassle doing it as well, I figured we could give wrapping it a go, as it might seem like a more cost effective and an easier option. And interestingly enough, this is actually apparently the last right-hand drive E92 M3 that they made in this colour. So if it was completely awful, we can peel it straight off, and it doesn't really ruin it too much. Beside the fact that it's been written off and it's done about 209,000 miles. So I've done countless things over the years. I've rebuilt engines, I've painted stuff, I've done loads of other little random mechanical bits around cars, but I've never ever wrapped a car. So I thought, how difficult can this actually be? And if ever there was a perfect car to do it on, it'd be this, because it's not exactly like it's a mint car. I bought it from a salvage yard in an absolute state. It's done about 209,000 miles, so I don't really think we've got anything to lose. And the thing is, I've never really felt the need to wrap anything else before, and I wanted this in a bit of a more interesting colour, so it's a perfect car for it, really. So I'll show you what colour that is, or well, what it was meant to be when I ordered it. And that colour is meant to be Atlantis blue, but as you can probably tell by this, it's not quite as close to Atlantis blue as I had in mind when I ordered it. So this colour is called Lake blue, and that's why I ordered it, because in the picture it literally looked just like Atlantis blue. So I'll put a picture up now of Atlantis blue and a picture of the car that I've seen with this colour on it, hence why I ordered it. And it's not quite there, it's kind of more like a bluey blue than like an aqua or teal blue. But it's here now, so we're going to put it on, and hopefully it's going to turn out okay, and it might turn out the same colour when we actually get it on. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's get on with it and get started prepping the car. Right, so first of all, I'm going to start off with the bonnet, and I need to wipe it down, dry it and prep it, and then we can try and get these out, get the badge off, lay the vinyl down, and just see how it goes. Right, so now I'll put the bonnet, we'll get these vents out and the badge. From what I've heard then, these should pull off, hopefully. Oh yeah, they pull off pretty easily. Right, so inside of here, as far as I can tell, there are meant to be some little clips inside of it. So I'm going to try and prise them off, and then hopefully we can pull that out, hopefully. Well, that's one of them down, and all the clips aren't broken, which is a great start. Let's get the other. Good start, both of them are off. Let's get the badge off. Not sure if this is the correct way of doing it, but it's hopefully going to work. Weren't too bad, was it? Right, so now I've got those off. Before we put the vinyl down, I need to wipe this down one last time. I'm going to go with the clay bar and a bit of IPA, which is like a panel wipe, to try and get rid of any solvent or grease that's left on it. So when we put it down, it's actually going to stick down. So even when you wash your car, sometimes loads of stuff will actually stick to paint. Now, I know it feels a little bit longed out, but they say paint's in the prep, maybe wraps in the prep too. Now, I'm not saying you definitely need to do this, but this is kind of just something that I've seen, and it makes sense. I tell you what though, going over things with a clay bar, it seems really tedious. To be fair, thankfully this car, the bodywork's pretty clean, because not long ago I actually detailed it. If you want to see that, there's a link just up there. And yeah, I know, because I detailed it not long ago, you're probably thinking, what's the point? Just remember though, I am no wrapping pro, I'm a complete amateur, so If this is called for, I don't know, but it's just what I've seen, what I've heard, and what makes sense to me. So we'll give it one last wipe down with a dry rag now, and then we can cut the vinyl. But before we cut it, I actually need to measure it. So what I'm going to do is measure the bonnet, see how big it is, and cut a bit of vinyl off, probably 2 to 4 inches bigger overall, and then we'll lay it down and just try and work it in. But I'll get the tape measure, we'll check how big it is, and yeah. So here we've got about 67 and about 55 here. Right, so now let's measure how wide that vinyl wrap is and see how much we need to cut off. Right, so the vinyl wrap itself is about 154 centimetres. So that's about 61 inches, so we need to cut 67 inches off. The overhang's fine, we'll just trim it off. Yes, I know, it's not a perfect scenario. Okay, so that's the vinyl cut. All we need to do now is try and get it roughly in place and figure out how we're meant to do this. Right, and so now it's roughly in place, I need to peel the backing film off this and try and stick it down. And I thought it'd be best to start with the bonnet, but it probably wasn't the best idea, if I'm honest. It was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be to do this, as you'll see. So now it's pretty much in place. I'm just peeling all the backing film off in one hit to try and get it stuck down. What do you think? Job done? Right, so now I've got all the backing film off. I've basically got to try and lay it down and pull it out to get it as flat on the bonnet as I can. Which, as you can see, wasn't exactly the easiest thing I've ever done. Yes, so I didn't really have a clue what I was doing at this point, but I decided to get my squidgy out and try and get it as flat as I could, trying to get it stuck down onto the bonnet and flatten the majority share of it out, because as you'll see in a minute, this made it probably about 10 times harder than it needed to be, and probably took 10 times longer as well. Anyway, so as you can see now, what I'm trying to do is start from one corner, working my way down one side to try and move across to the other side. The whole idea in doing this then is to get one corner fixed in place so you can work your way from that one corner, forcing all the wrinkles out and getting it flat. Now, in theory, this would be perfect on a lot of other cars, but the only complication now is a bulge in the middle of the bonnet, which most other cars don't have. But this is what made it a bit more difficult. So if I was to do it on this car again or something similar, I'd probably start at the top, and it probably doesn't help that this is the first panel that I've ever tried to wrap, because as you can see now, right in the middle of the bonnet, there's a load of tension just around the outside of it. So I was a bit unsure at this point how much heat to use, how to work the material, but like I say, in theory, if I was to do it again, I would be starting off at the top. Now at this point in time, I've got absolutely no experience doing it, and I've only watched a few basic how-to videos on how to wrap a car, and you only really learn these things by trying, really, don't you? And then I'd also just realised I'd made another complete rookie mistake. Right, well so far I'm not sure if I'm doing this completely right, but it's got this outer film on it, so it's got like a double sort of skin to it, I think. So what I'm thinking, I might take this protective layer off and go at it that way. Like, it's fairly flat here, and I think when I was watching one of these videos, it was saying something to glass it out. So I think that's why I keep getting wrinkles down here. So I'm going to try and pull it out, put tension on it, and hopefully that should do it. But yeah, I'll pull it out, read the wrinkles as they call it. I think when I've watched the videos, they call it reading the wrinkles, and what you need to do is stretch it out, I think. So I'm going to try and pull it out, stretch it out, and hopefully that should get majority share of it out of it, because I was hoping I could just squidgy it out, but I think maybe because it's so curved, that might be why it's wrinkling. But there's like a protective film on it, so I'm going to take that protective film off it, and maybe I'll be able to put a bit more tension on. I'm not too sure. Of course, it's not the best quality wrap in the world, but for the, I don't know, third of it that I've done, I don't think it's awful. I'll get that off, we'll kind of do that read the wrinkles thing, pull it out, tension it and pull it down. Hopefully that's going to make it a bit better. So glassing it out and reading the wrinkles did actually make this a lot better. And despite all this, it still took me ages to try and get the first half of the bonnet down. But this was the easy part. I got stuck on the middle of it for ages. And yeah, I mean ages. Right, so it's taken me that long just to get this far with it. The camera died and it's got dark. So this bit here was really, really difficult to do. I'm not sure if it's down to the fact that it's the first time I've done it, or it's meant to be a difficult point to do. But I had to pretty much peel the whole thing off again just to try and get all of this in the right place, because it just kept flaring up and bubbling up here. But it's all done up to there now, all done around to here, but I'm slowly getting the hang of it. So now what we need to do is carry on with this bit here, work this bit out, trim away at it, and then tomorrow we'll have a little bit of a better look at it, and we'll also get the bumper off, or we'll move on to the wings. I'm not too sure, but like I say, we need to finish the bonnet off tonight, and then we'll carry on with the rest of it tomorrow. Right, so now you know what's going on. You can see that I've got all this tension trapped in this side, so I've got to slowly work all this out, pull it over to one side and slowly trim little bits off it just to try and get the worst of it out. And I probably didn't do this in the best way. As you can see, what I've done is I've worked all this tension into the middle, so I had to keep lifting it up multiple times to try and work it out. Now in hindsight, it probably would have been better to work my way down from one corner or the top, forcing all that tension out one way or the other. Putting it in the middle made it a lot harder, but you can see slowly, bit by bit, I'm starting to work it out towards the edge. Now that I've worked the larger wrinkles out, you can see there are only a few small ones that are trapped on the body line, which are a lot easier to get off. And now that we've got all those sorted out and flattened out, we just need to finish off the little bit in the front. Right, so the bonnet's fully wrapped now. I'm going to trim away all the edges and try and tuck it under, and then we'll take a proper look at it in the daylight, because right now I can't really see it too well, and in this light it's hard to tell how good or bad it is. Now I'm going to trim around the edges, use a little Stanley knife and literally just trim it off and tuck it under. Now that I've trimmed away the edges, I just need to use a little bit of heat and work all of it in with my finger to try and get it tucked and wrapped around. And to be fair, it probably isn't the cleanest cut. I could have probably done a better job of trimming away at it and cutting away, but of course on the edge of the bonnet it's not going to be too noticeable. I'm not going to worry about it too much. We're just going to carry on tucking it away and wrapping it under, working our way around to the other side. Right, so I'll show you the bonnet now because the light's a bit better. I've wiped it down and it's not turned out awfully. At the same time, it could look a lot better, but it could look a lot worse. Anyway, I'll show you what it's turned out like, and I don't think it's completely dreadful. So down here, there's a few little defects that I'm not too happy with, like little things trapped under it. And up here, there's a wrinkle right in the middle of that, and a few little things under here. Probably from when I put my hand under it. It's not exactly perfect, like I say, but this is pretty much my first attempt at ever doing this. And in here as well, I need to trim these out still, of course. You can probably tell that anyway. And then down here, we still need to trim that. But like I say, if I do have any left over, I will probably do the bonnet again. But for now, I'll leave it as it is. See how much I've got left over. If I've not got any left over, I'll just trim all this off and tuck all the vents and the badge back on. So it could look a lot better and it could look a lot worse. Not the ideal conditions, like I say, but it's all a learning curve for me. Anyway, now I'm going to move on and do the swing. First of all, get this indicator out, and then we can get started measuring up the wrap and getting it on. I don't think it looks too bad, to be fair. Right, so unfortunately as well, it's literally just started raining. So I'm going to try and pull this off with some tape like that, pull it out, and then I'll probably end up taking that front bumper off, and we'll take that in the garage and do that while the weather's a bit crap. Right, so to take this bumper off, each side there are a few 8mm, I'll unbolt them, a few T30s on the top and a few electrical connections. First, I'm going to measure how big this is, cut the material down, and we'll know how big it is when it comes around to doing it. So with a couple of inches each side, about 53 inches, and then about 30 for that way. So I'm hoping I can get to them without having to turn the wheel. One of them I can, and same with the other. Just the joys of working on cars. Right, so I'm taking this bumper off for a multitude of reasons. One is I'm going to change the splitter on the car, and I'm also thinking it's going to be easy to wrap it while it's off the car, or well, so I thought at least anyway. But one of the main reasons is also because I've got a missing washer jet, and to get to that I need to take the bumper off. Right, so now they're undone, I'm just going to quickly get off the T30s on the top, and we can pull it off and disconnect the sensors. Right, so I've got the front bumper off now and the rain's pretty much stopped, so I'm going to try and dry that wing down, cut the vinyl size, see how we get on with it, and if it does carry on raining, we'll do the front bumper. Right, so from my measurements, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll out about 53 inches of this, cut it off, and then cut it down the middle, and that should cover both of the wings. Right, so I've cut the material for both the wings and it's pretty much stopped raining, so we'll dry the panel down, try and lay this down, and hopefully it should go a little bit better than the bonnet. Right, so I was wrong about that. It hasn't actually stopped raining, so for now we'll carry on with this. Right, so the reason I've taken the front bumper off to do this is because when I rebuilt this car, I had a missing washer jet because this whole headlight bracket had broken, and the washer jet from BMW was £95, which I didn't feel like paying, so I got another one of those from China, which was about £6. So I just need to plug that back in now, plug that line back in, and it should be fine. And if you want to see that video, click the link just up there. Okay, so when I rebuilt this car, I left everything on it in a way that it would be easy to put this in when it arrived. So to fit this premium quality washer jet, I basically got to pull the washer lines out the way and just basically press fit it into the bracket. Now that's pressed in, I just need to trim off a bit off the end of the rubber pipe, press the hose fit in into it, and it should press straight on. As well as that, there's a small plastic U-shaped clip which I'm going to put on, and then that's that end done, and we need to move round to the back of it, where we're going to do exactly the same and connect this line to the pipe that comes off the washer bottle itself. As well as that, I noticed it could do with a bit of a trim down at one end, so I took the pipe off, cut it down and press that right back on. And now to finish this off in the most professional manner, I'm going to put a couple of cable ties on there to hold the rest of it all back together. Right, and now that's all done, finally we should have a fully working pair of washer jets. Let's get back to the wrap. Right, that's all done now, and the rain's pretty much stopped, so I'm going to try and get this wiped down and then we can do this wing. Right, so because this is plastic, these magnets aren't going to work on it to try and hold it down. I don't think bonnet's not going to work either. So I think they'll work on the door and maybe that A-pillar. Yeah, so I'll put them on there, and then when we get the vinyl on, we'll try and pull it down that way and pull it across from the back and the top right. I think I'm going to have to tape it here, probably the best way that I can do it right now. Right, so now it's roughly in place, we need to cut a little bit out of here for the wheel arch. We'll save that offcut for something else. Maybe it's a bit too much overhang, I'm not too sure. Probably also do with cutting that off in a bit, but first I'll get it stuck down. So I'm going to start off by removing the backing film, getting it stuck down, then removing the top sheet, and then I'm going to glass it out and try and get it as flat as I can. So with me trying to get it as flat as I can before getting any heat or squidging it down, it should hopefully make the whole process a lot easier. So I'm going to try and get it as flat as I can, and then we can get the squidgy and the heat gun on it to try and get it properly set down. Now already after a few pulls, and you can see it's starting to get a lot flatter, but I want to try and make sure I get as much of this out as I can. So it's probably the best way to try and do it is to try and get all of the wrinkles out before we get any heat on it or squidging it down. Or well, as many as we can at least. Now as you can see, after a fair share of pulling and trying to stretch this out to get it as flat as I can, I'm ready to get my squidge out, try and flatten it down, get some heat on it and tuck it all away. So now we just need to get a bit of heat on it, try and work it in and start trimming some of the excess off. And now I've got the main bit down, I need to try and tuck it into the indent in the wing, which was actually quite tricky to do, so I had to put a small patch on the inside which should be covered up when I put the indicator back in. And now that's all tucked in, we need to trim the main bits of excess off, and then we can get started trying to tuck it away. Right, so now we've roughly got it in place, we need to try and tuck some of this away. So I'm going to try and trim it down a little bit more, and then we'll try and wrap it around the back of it. Right, so now it's the most satisfying part where we get to cut all the excess off, tuck it away and make it look good. Or, well, half decent. Right, so now it's all done around the arch, we just need to work our way around the rest of the wing, starting off at the bottom, moving on to the door, and then next to the bonnet. So to trim off the edges, we're going to apply a light bit of heat, rubbing it in with a finger and then cutting away with it at a Stanley blade, pulling the material off, followed up by another bit of heat, rubbing it all in and then going around it with a squidgy to tuck the rest of it in. Right, so we've done this wing and it was a lot easier to do this than the bonnet, and I think it's turned out a lot better too. All the cuts around here are nice and clean and it's tucked around pretty nicely. The only bit that's a bit awkward is inside of here, so I think I cut it a bit too close to that, but I think when I put the indicator back in it should be fine. But I'm going to trim all this stuff off here because the knife that I was using was a bit blunt and I think that makes quite a big difference. But like I say, apart from that, down here pretty good, down here pretty good, and around here it's turned out really well in comparison. Maybe down to getting used to it, or maybe it's just easier to do a wing than a bonnet, I don't know. But like I say, inside of here this looks shoddy, but when we put the indicator back in won't be able to tell and it should look pretty good. Anyway, that's one side down, let's do the other. Right, so we're going to do exactly the same on this wing, starting off by taking the indicator off, giving it a quick wipe down and then getting the wrap on. Now already it's starting to feel like I'm getting the hang of this the more that I'm doing, and you can see it's laying down a lot easier than the other side, so I'm slowly getting used to how this material's working. Of course, I'm still no expert at this. Now unfortunately here it's that horrible time of year where it gets dark stupidly early, so you're going to slowly see this fade to darkness and then we're going to come back in with a light, because as you can probably imagine I was preoccupied with wrap. I wasn't paying too much attention to how quickly it was getting dark. Now it was all going pretty well apart from a small little corner because I think I cut it a bit too close, but it's alright because I managed to work my way around it, pulling it out a bit and tucking it under. Right, so that's another wing done, and I feel like the more that I'm doing this, the better it's getting and the more I'm understanding how it's meant to work. So in here, it looks a lot better now as well, and even around the edges and all of this stuff, it just seems to be getting easier the more that I'm doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also wrap the indicators before I put them back in. I would have liked some carbon ones, but I think for now I'm just going to wrap these black. Right, so unfortunately I've had a bit of a dig around. The only gloss black vinyl wrap that I can find is this, and it's just not quite big enough to do it. So I'll order some more of that and we'll go back to these. Anyway, tomorrow we'll carry on with the wrapping and come back to this. Right, in the daylight then, this wing's turned out pretty well to be fair, and I feel like the more that I'm doing this, the better I'm getting it. Granted, it's not perfect. Anyway, let's move on and we can do the side now. Okay, so now I need to do down this side, and I'm going to move the cart over a little bit to give myself some more room. Probably take this trim piece off as well instead of trying to tuck it under, because it's quite easy to get off and it probably make it easier. So I'll move it over and then we'll get started. Right, so now I've got a load more room, which is going to make it a lot easier to work in. And this trim around here, to get this off, all I need to do is open the door, pull this off here, and we can take it off. I've taken this off in another video before if you want to see that. The link's just up there. Right, so now I've got a load more room. I'll get the vinyl wrap, we'll measure it out and try and make it fit. Now I know what you might be thinking about my method of cutting it, but let's be real, what else am I meant to do in this sort of environment? So I'm going to cut it off now, do it by eye, and I think I'm going to leave probably 4 inches of overhang, or about that there, even though it's a lot more than that right now, and then we'll cut it off at the back, and it should be kind of about there. So let's get it cut and do the hard part. Is this an approved method of doing it? I don't think so, but it should be alright. Right, so I'm going to start off by removing all the trims, having a quick clean down, and then we'll get the vinyl cut and try and lay it down. Now, as you can see, I'm not too clued up on how I'm meant to cut this or where I'm going to start, but I figured the best way to do this would be to cut the main bits off and start from the top, work my way down to the bottom. Right, so I figured the best thing to do would to try and be to stretch most of it out without using any heat on it or trying to squidgy any of it down. So I pretty much pulled the majority share of it out of this pillar, then I applied a little bit of heat just to get it around the curves, and then started cutting the excess off. And I didn't have to worry too much about the cut on the inside because of taking that trim off. I could literally just put it straight on, but the bit at the bottom of the window pillar was a bit of a struggle to do. I figured the best thing to do would be to cut most of it off and try and tuck a little bit under the scuttle tray to keep it tucked down. And now that I figured that out, we started to move away up the A pillar and around to the back. This was probably one of the hardest parts, trying to tuck it between the rubber seal and the pillar. It was actually quite difficult trying to work it along little bit by little bit, as I couldn't just slide it along to get it tucked under. But of course, like most things with practice, the more that I was doing this, the easier that it got, and I slowly got the hang of it. Now before we go any further with this, we need to move around to the C pillar to try and get that flattened out and stretched out before we carry on with this. Now with a mix of pulling it, a bit of heat and the squidgy, eventually I flattened most of this off to try and pull that tension out towards the back. And now that we've got the top part done, we need to pull this quarter down and try and get this as flat as we can. So what I'm trying to do is get this flat, so I'm pulling all the tension out to each end. Now this was actually quite tricky to do because all of the curves are all trapped into there, and you can see right on the edge of that quarter there's a little bit of a bubble which I'm slowly trying to work out. So I found out the only way to get rid of it was to pull the wrap completely up and try and work it back in, working from the top down. Now because I lifted the wrap up, this meant that I had to rework it back into the rear quarter and then back along to the front. Now that I got this all flattened out, it was time to trim off the rest of the stuff around the C pillar and get it all tucked in around there. Now at this point it was all going pretty well, but this is where things took a turn for the worse when I moved on to doing the bottom. Right, so I've completely destroyed this bit here and I've made an absolute mess of it. So it was all going well, all of that top bit's completely fine. I was tucking that all in, and then I got down to doing this part to cut the door down. I made some stupid mistake, weren't really thinking, and I didn't quite cut the angle right, so I've been trying to stretch it over and heat it up, and I've just pulled way too hard and it's completely torn this as I've been trying to stretch it over, because I've gone it multiple times and I cut it for some reason directly down from the door handle itself. I don't know why I done that, I just wasn't really thinking, but absolute mess. I've completely destroyed however many meters that is, so I'm not too sure now if I'm going to have enough. So now I'm going to have to take this completely off again and just do the whole thing over again, which is really, really irritating because I spent absolutely ages doing all of this stuff. All top of it looks really, really good. And then I've literally got to here, tried stretching that out. The back there's tucked in nicely. Got down here, doing it, and it was nice along here. And then I've literally got to here and I've just made a stupid mistake. And then me trying to fix that mistake is just completely destroyed it. So yeah, I made a complete mess of it, rookie error, which has cost me the whole panel, which is really irritating because if I hadn't have done that, I'd literally have not long, I would have done this by now, which is really annoying, and it's probably the worst part that I could have made a mistake on. So I've only got one roll and that's about 18 meters, and because I've completely messed this up, I'm thinking now, am I going to be able to get away with it? Down there I've got some offcuts, which is for the door. Let's say the front end, 5 meters, 3 meters. I've used half of it now, and I've still got to do the other side. And obviously I've got to redo this side because I made a complete mess of it. And then I've still got to cut off stuff for these and the rear bumper and the boot lid. Thankfully, like I say, I don't have to do the roof. I don't think I'll be redoing that bonnet though, I'm not going to lie. Which isn't good. Okay, so after making a complete mess of that panel, which is really, really irritating, now I'm not sure if we're going to have enough left to do it, because that roll that I've ordered, I've only ordered one roll, is 59 feet, so that's about 18 metres, and this car, I don't know how much it's meant to use on it, but overall so far I'm pretty sure that I've used about 32 metres, which isn't good because that's more than half, and I haven't even done a lot of it yet. So I'm going to have to be really careful with what I'm doing now, and I think what I might do is run the numbers, make a few measurements and see if we can still make it work, and just go from there really. But I think, like I say, this is probably about 11 feet to do each panel, so it's going to be 22 feet to do each side, left and right. And then on top of that, the bumpers as well, I think they're probably about 6 feet, and you could probably cut it in two maybe, I don't know, but I made a complete mess of this. Probably the biggest mistake I could have made was ordering one roll of it and thinking, yeah, that'll be fine. But I don't know, we are where we are. What we can do now is try and figure out a way around it. And like, if I've used more than half of it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, or I'm just going to have a two-tone car for a little bit maybe. And of course the only way to learn though is to make mistakes, so we're going to have to measure everything up now, figure out how much I've used, and then try and figure out a way of still trying to make this work. So I'll get a tape measure and we'll measure how long this bit is. Right, so I've measured down here, and this side alone is about 11 feet, so for another two sides, that's, let's say 22 feet, which if we've already used that leaves us 49 feet, so that's quite close, because that will leave us 10 feet left to do the other bit. So now I'm going to have to be really tactical about how I'm going to cut this down. So I'm thinking I might have to find some weird way around it to try and make this work, or it's going to be a patchy car. So what I'm thinking I might do is I might peel this off and literally try and keep it, it sounds a bit stupid maybe, but try and keep it somewhat intact, and then put it on top of the vinyl when I've cut it. Well, not when I've cut it, but before I cut it, use that rail that I've taken off to try and figure out how much allowance I've got, leave probably 2 inches each side of it, and then try and twist left and right into one to cut it off. And then I'll just cut a single sheet out for the door, and then these two side skirts, I'll try and trim a bit off them. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm basically going to draw on the back of the vinyl itself like an outline of what I've already done to a degree, and then just leave a bit of allowance around it. I don't know if it's a smart thing to do, to be fair, but I'm thinking it's the only way that I can actually make it work, like I say, because I still need to do all of that, and of course I still need to do the rest of this. So I think you see what I'm saying. So I'm going to try and outline it, like I say, leave quite a bit each side, definitely a bit here, and also, like I say, down here I'll probably cut off, well, just try and leave a little bit like this chunk here I don't need for the door, and then, like I say, try and make use of that in something else if I can pull it along. I'm not too sure if that'll work actually, but like I say, is I can at least try and save myself the chunk for the door, and the rest of it for other little bits, like say that other door, that could probably do the boot lid, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try and trim it off, trim around the edge, and hope that it goes better this time, because if I mess it up one more time on anything, that's it. So let's mark it up and get it all cut out. Right, so here's my cutout. It probably doesn't look perfect, but I think it should be okay. Anyway, we'll give it another wipe down, and then we'll put this back on, and hopefully this time it should go a bit better. Right, so I was just about to put it back on. I've given it a quick clean down, and it's just started spitting, so I'll get back to this when it's lighter and the weather's better. Right, so the weather this afternoon is still a bit rubbish, so we'll pop in there and we'll try and get the front bumper done. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start stripping the bumper down, taking these grills out, taking this carbon fibre splitter off, because I've got another one to go on and I want to take it off to wrap it. So what is that? We'll take these out, take them out, and then we'll get started trying to prep it. So as you can see, the front bumper definitely isn't in the best condition, hence probably why it's got the splitter on it, is to hide the mark at the front of it. So in theory, if we weren't going to wrap this car, it would need paint, and that's one of the reasons I felt like doing this, because it costs the same to wrap the car as it would be to just paint the front bumper. So I'm pretty much just going to completely strip everything off the bumper to make it a bit easier to wrap and to try and sort some of the defects out. Right, so before we wrap this, I'm also going to patch up all these little pinholes from where screws have been put in it. So I'm going to put some tape on the back of it, and then we'll put a bit of filler in. So to get the worst of it out, I'm just going to put a bit of filler on the holes and the cracks, give it a wipe down, and it should be covered up by the wrap. Right, so day 58, the weather's kind of better, it's not perfect, but what we'll do now, I've dried this down, we'll try and put the vinyl back on, and of course not mess it up down there. Right, well, what can I say, round 2, so we'll just blitz through this, get us all done. It's exactly the same as before, well, not quite the same as last time. This time I'd like it to actually go to plan, but you get the idea. Not exactly what I planned to be doing, but sometimes that's what happens. On the plus side, at least I've got a bit of a better idea of what I'm meant to be doing and a bit more experience too. The only other difference is I took the roof rail off to try and make it a bit easier. Right then, so already I've got a lot further than last time and it's looking better too, if I'm honest. So what I'm going to do now is trim it around here, trimming the tops down and try and tuck it along there, and then we can move on to finishing off around the edges. Okay, so far then, I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I know it's probably not perfect if you're a pro at this, but I don't think it looks awful so far, and it's starting to look pretty good. So now what we need to do is trim away at this door bit down here. So what I'm going to try and do is use what they call knifeless tape, which is kind of like a fishing wire or like a string with tape. So we're going to tape it inside of here. I'm going to try and do that. Well, the other thing that I'm kind of debating now is if it'll actually stick down, because it is a bit damp to be fair, but we'll have to see how it goes and if it turns out alright. Right, so this stuff is meant to be the knifeless tape, so we'll try and put it inside of here, and what I'm hoping for is it will give us a clean. I'm not sure if I'm even doing this right, but you know, practice makes perfect, doesn't it? So what we're going to do is put the knifeless tape beneath the wrap it over the top, make sure it's nice and flat and that there are no wrinkles next to it. So we need to leave a couple of inches hanging out at one end so that we can hold part of it down. We'll pull the string away through the vinyl and that will create that perfect cut. And already just look at how clean that cut is. So now we just need to trim the excess off at the top and the bottom, and then we can tuck it under. Right, so I probably didn't put it down in the best way, but look how nice and clean that cut is down there. And as you can see, I've left quite a bit of excess just in case I made a mess of it, but that's all right for now. If I get used to it a bit more, might come back and trim it a bit further in, but for now we can leave that. That's all tucked in. We'll move on and do the arch. Well, actually, before we do the arch, I'm going to try and finish up this little quarter here, get all this tucked in, and then we'll trim away around here, and then we'll do the arch last. I think that's probably a better idea, because what I was thinking, I don't want to trim it away and then have to pull more of this out, so we'll get this done first, then we'll do the arch. Now, despite the setbacks, we're starting to make real progress with it, and bit by bit, it's starting to take shape. Right, so this panel, it's all done, and I'm pretty happy, to be fair, with how this is turning out. Of course, it's still a bit damp, and it's a horrible sort of spitting rain or whatever. So tomorrow what we'll do is we'll start off on the door, do side skirt as well, because I think what we're going to have to do is probably take this door handle out and that little trim, but for now, we'll carry on with that front bumper. The holes filled are all drying out, and giving this a quick wipe down. So what we're going to do now is do some inlays on the inside of these more awkward shapes, because what I've heard, it can be quite tricky trying to force the material, even when it's hot, into these areas. And I've heard that if you do bumper inlays, what I've seen is people put the knifeless tape inside of here. We're going to use a bit of scrap material, pull that knifeless tape up, because we know it works now as well, and then we'll just pull it out, pull the excess off, and then we'll get the big film to go over the rest of the bumper, put some more knifeless tape under it after we've done the inlays, and it should make it easier and it should look a bit better too. So let's get the knifeless tape on and you see what I mean. So to start doing the inlays, we're going to put some knifeless tape down first, and then use some of the scraps that we've got left over to put in the inside, which we're going to trim away at. So what we're trying to do is get a clean cut around all of the more complicated edges, so that when we put the big sheet of vinyl on, we can wrap it over the top with a nice clean cut and we shouldn't be able to tell too much. Now it might seem a bit strange, but in some of these areas it's the only way that we can actually cover it. If we were to put the bigger sheet of vinyl straight on it, we'd have a really difficult time trying to get in some of these areas. Just like inside this mouth, it makes it a lot easier, so that when we put that big sheet on, we can just trim it away, make some clean cuts on it, and it should look pretty good. So doing inlays makes it a lot easier, and they can also be an absolute lifesaver. Anyway, we'll get back to the inlays later. For now, we'll carry on with the wrap on the outside of the car. Right, so in the daylight, this turned out pretty well, to be fair. So now we're going to move on and do the door. So I'm probably going to have to take this handle off to do it, and also maybe this trim up here. So I'll open this up, and inside of here, there's, I think it's a little bit inside of here that we've got to undo. So we'll get that undone, and we should be able to pop that out. Easy as that then. So now I'm going to try and slide this off. I think this is going to be, there we go. So we've taken both of those off now. That'll make it a bit easier to wrap. Anyway, we'll give us a quick clean down and a wipe up, and then we'll get wrapping. Now the door's clean, I just need to trim the offcut for the door down a little bit to try and make it easy to wrap. So I could try and tuck it under the mirror, working my way from the top down. Now the top bit wasn't too bad, but the bottom bit, it's got a very small radius and it was actually quite hard, so it took me a few attempts trying to flatten it out to work it all the way towards the bottom. And now that's flattened out, I just need to try and work it in around the door handle. So best way to do it is a small bit of heat, working it in with fingers, trying to push the bubbles out to both sides. And now that we've got that done, we just need to work the rest of it in around the sides, and then we can start to trim off all the excess. And now that we've got most of it done, we can start to put a few of the trims back on, and then we'll work our way down to the side skirt. Now it might look easy, but it's actually quite difficult, because on the inside of the door I've also had to put knifeless tape so that when I cut it off at the top, it's going to have a clean cut there. But what makes it even more difficult is trying to tuck it into this radius and then wrapping it underneath the bottom made the wrap go off into all sorts of awkward angles. But thankfully underneath the car we're not going to be able to tell. Now we've got that out of the way, we just need to trim it off and tuck it away around each corner. Now, last but not least, we need to wrap the door handle and the door lock, and then we can get this door all back together. I found the best way to do this was to heat a bit of material up, put it over the top, and just try and work it around, making it meet in the middle, and then trim the rest of it off. And trying to wrap these is probably one of the most fiddly things, because it's such a small, tight radius. Trying to get it around each one of these corners without any wrinkles takes quite a bit of effort. So I had to put an overlay at each end so that when we open the door handle, we're not going to see the colour beneath it. Okay, so there we go, that was proper fiddly, but I think it should be okay. To be honest, I don't think I'll be able to get these much better than this, the way I'm doing it. So they're ready, let's put them back on. Right then, so that's all back together now. Seat's pretty good. It's nicely tucked away. That looks fine down there as well. So what we'll do tomorrow, we'll flip this car around and we'll carry on with the other side. Right, so I've done the other side. I've got a bit of a better idea of what I'm doing. Is we'll get straight into it, start stripping everything off, get your door handle off now, get all this stuff off, and hopefully it should be a lot quicker. Right then, let's do it. Right, this side's going to be a lot quicker. The only difference is I took the rear light out and put some knifeless tape around all of the edges to try and make it a bit easier. Right, so I'm sure we can both agree this side has definitely gone a lot better than the other side, and slowly but surely it's starting to take shape. But it's pretty cold, so we'll carry on with this tomorrow. Absolutely freezing, I'm not going to lie, it's that cold. There's ice on the roof. Right, so I've done all of that panel now. It was such a pain trying to tuck it into that bit because I think there was a bit of moisture under there and it kept trying to like tuck it around, it wouldn't stick down. But I got there in the end. I'll come back to the fuel flap in a bit, but I've trimmed the main bits away so we could put all the trims around the windows back on, put that roof rail back on, and it was an absolute pain trying to tuck all of this into there. But now I'd say it looks pretty good. Well, it looks good to me and I'd say it's pretty decent. Anyway, now move on to the door, put trims back on, and then we'll do skirt. So the door was going really well, but then unfortunately the weather took a turn for the worse. So the doors are done now, all the trims are back on, and I've got them on just in time before it started raining. So I did want to move down here and do the side skirt, but because it's raining now, I think it's probably best to leave it for now. Wait till it stops and we'll come back to it. For now then, I think the best thing we could do is try and sort the door handle out. Unfortunately, as you know, we can't always predict the weather, but we can use this time to try and do the door handle. So while it's raining, we're going to do this now and get it out of the way. Now I'm doing this side exactly the same as the other, so I've just got a bit of scrap material, trying to wrap it around from each end, and literally just trimming it off bit by bit, using a bit of heat to try and get rid of most of the wrinkles. So it's pretty tedious and it does take quite a bit of time. But now the rain's pretty much stopped, so we'll get back to the wrap on the outside of the car. Right, so I've dried all this down now. We're going to try and get side skirt down because we've got just a bit of light left, so we're going to try and make the most of it. Right, so skirt's all done now, all trimmed away and all tucked in, not quite before dark, but it's done now. So now we just need to finish off that door lock, we can put this back together and then we can move on to the front and the back. Right, so both sides are done now at long last, so tomorrow we'll move on, do the rear bumper and the boot lid. Right, so as for the rear end, I was going to do this out here, but I'm going to make a bit of space in the garage and pull the back end in, because I should just be able to do this back half and then it should be a bit easier, so let's do that. Right, so I've just managed to clear a little bit of space to pull this back end in, and it should be a lot easier to do it inside of here than outside. So we'll start off by getting both these badges off, get this plate off, get the spoiler off, have a bit of a clean up, and then we'll start doing some inlays, because I think inside of here I'm not going to be able to wrap that whole thing around, so I'm thinking an inlay here is probably the best thing to do, and we'll do a few in the bumper and we'll just get it cleaned up and get on with it. So let's get started. Right, so I'm going to start off by removing both the rear badges and the number plate. So this first one I can pretty much just prise off, and to remove the other badge I'm going to use a bit of fishing wire to remove this and the rear spoiler, as well as giving it a clean up with a taffy wheel and a quick clean down when I've got both off. And now I've done that, I'm going to remove both the number plate bulbs and the rear lights to make it a bit easier to wrap around. And of course, giving it a quick lean down, and then we can start wrapping. So now it's all clean, I'm going to start by putting some knifeless tape down and doing a few inlays to try and make this a bit easier. Now I've got the first inlay down, we just need to trim it down and tuck it all away. Now we've got that first one done, we need to put a second inlay on the number plate recess. So I found the best way to do it was starting on the inside of the inlay and then working out to all the edges. The only problem I had there was a little bit trapped in the middle, but eventually with a bit of heat we could pull it all out and flatten it down. Now it's done, we just need to trim it down and tuck it all away. And now we've got the bottom half done, we need to do another bit on the top half. The first part of the top half went down really well, but I actually had to pull it back up and put another inlay, as I couldn't manage to wrap it around to the recess in that boot lid. So when I was saying earlier inlays can be a lifesaver, this is exactly what I'm on about. So now I've done that inlay, we're going to pull the top half back over and overlap it so we don't see the line across it. And now it's all done, we'll trim it down, tuck it away and take a look. There we go then, so the boot lid's done. To be honest, I completely underestimated how difficult this would be. So I broke it down into 3, maybe 4 pieces. So that bit, under bit, this bit, and the other bit. I'm not entirely sure if that's the correct way to do it, or if it's very good, but I'm quite happy with how it's turned out. You can barely even see that little seam along there, so when I put the spoiler on, shouldn't be able to tell, and I think, like I say, I'm just going to put it over the top and it should be easier that way. Just need to make a couple little holes in, put the badge back on, put plates back on, and also all of that stuff. So to be fair, considering I'm a complete beginner at this, I wouldn't say it looks too bad at all, and I don't think you can really see inside of there. So let's get everything back on it, get it back together, and then move to the bumper. And now it's back together, I'm going to finish it off with a genuine Temu carbon spoiler. Okay, so I've had a quick clean up now. We're going to do some inlays down here around these pieces to make it a bit easier when we wrap this bumper. So we're going to put a couple of sheets in here, try and get these harder parts out the way, and then we can put the big film across the bumper and cut the parking sensors out. So let's get them inlays in and get the bumper done. Right, so we've got most carded now, but we still need to do these bumpers, which are probably one of the most difficult bits to do. I think the thing that makes them so difficult is the amount of inlays that we have to do in them. Now, I'm finding these really difficult to do because I'm not quite sure about the best way how to do these or how to try and get it in there. So it's a good job I've got quite a bit of scrap. I figured out in the end the best way to do it would try and be to do the bottom half in one and then to do the other top half in a separate piece. So with that done and moving on to the middle and having just the other side left to do, it started to feel like we were making some real progress. Inlay by inlay, it felt like we were finally starting to get somewhere until I ran into another problem when I unrolled the last bit of wrap. Right, so I've just unwrapped the last of the roll and I've got some slightly worrying and questionable news. So I've put it around this panel here and I've used all of that now. So it's just at the end on this one. And if I pull it all the way around here, it's about 2 or 3 inches short, which comes to here. But I'm thinking because it's about 2 meters, maybe a bit more, I'm not sure, but say 2 meters and it's got, say, 10% stretch in it. 10% of that 2 meters is 200 centimeters, which is, I don't know, like 8 or 9 inches, something around there. So I think if we play it smart enough, we can just get away with it. Thankfully though, the front bumper's a bit short. Anyway, let's get this properly on and hope for the best. Let's go. But then again, saying that, I'm not even accounting for the radiuses, the shapes, the curves in the bumpers, or how it's going to work at all. I'm pretty much just going out on a limb, hoping that I can manage to stretch it around each side to cover up 5 or 6 inches of wrap that I haven't got. So now I've just got to try and do my best, pulling it over as much as I can, trying to get one side in and see if I can try and wrap this to each end in one piece, because if this doesn't work, the whole thing's toast. That's it. With this last sheet being too short, there's not exactly much else I can do. I can't cut another sheet and I can't exactly inlay a bumper together, can I? So my only option is to try my best to pull it over to one side to see if I can just wrap it around. Right then, so by an absolute miracle, I've managed to stretch it all the way around here and I've just managed to get it around that corner with, let's say, about 10 mil. So this side's good. Now let's move on and hopefully we can still cover the other side, which I think we will, because I tried to space it evenly, which is, yeah, pretty much the same. I think there's actually a bit more on this side, so let's get this side done and then start laying it in here and doing all the inlays. Well, isn't that a relief? If I can get it to one side, I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to get it over to the other as long as I don't make another mistake. And after quite a few attempts trying to stretch it over, I just managed to get it around that corner and tuck it on the inside. And now that we've got the main bit down, we just need to work it in around all the edges and start trimming it down to fit. So we're going to start off slowly working the mouth in, trimming it away bit by bit and tucking it in and wrapping it over the top of the inlay. Now the middle stump, we're going to move on to doing the inlays on each side, and it's starting to really feel like we're back on track and it's going the right way. Now I know you might be eyeing them tips up and thinking they don't sit right. They don't sit right with me either. So in the future, we are going to get around to that and sort them out. For now though, we're going to carry on with this wrap. Now we've pretty much got the inlays in, I got a bit distracted and thought I'll try and do one of the parking sensors, which wasn't actually too bad. So now I'm just going to trim the rest of the wrap off, get all of that done, and then we'll finish off with the parking sensors. Now it's all tucked away, we just need to finish off with the sensors. I found the best way to do these was just to trim them off around the edge, tuck them in with a squidgy, and then cut off around a 12 or 30mm socket with a little circle and just stick it on the top. So far it's looking pretty good. The only bit questionable is all these inlays down. I don't think they're too bad, but I might get a diffuser for it just to try and cover some of that up, and in case some of this is going to come off, because one thing I'm kind of concerned about is the heat off the tips on it or the exhaust. It might react to the wrap and it might flake down a bit, so I think if I get a diffuser it will tie a lot of that in and it'll stop it from happening. Apart from that though, I think it looks pretty good. Right, so we finished off the rear now, and to be honest I'm so glad that I've just managed to squeeze each end out of that last little bit. I think, to be honest, if I'd have cut probably 1 or 2 inches more out of that, I wouldn't have done it. I've just managed to get that extra little 10mm each end to pull it over and to tuck around the edge. So we've just done it in one full roll so far. Of course, I still need to do that front bumper, so let's flip it around and we'll finish off with the front. Right, so pull this in, it's going to be a lot easier to on the car and in here because it's absolutely chucking it down today. So this inlay inside of here is pretty good. I'm going to leave that alone, but I think I'm going to do a couple of other inlays. So this one here, I don't think it's very good, and judging by the fact I've got a bit more experience behind me now, I think I probably need to pull it a bit further down here to cover this bit. So I'll cut it off in that corner, leave this bit at the top alone, and we'll do an inlay down this side and we'll do the same on this side. In some ways, it seems like the last one I did was a bit of a waste, but sometimes that's what it is because it's all still completely new to me and I'm still learning. And like the saying goes, do it once, do it properly. So I'm also going to put some nitrous tape around the grills and on top of these, ready for when we put the big sheet of vinyl on. Now I've done those inlays, we can put the big sheet of vinyl on and try and work it into place. So I just had to pull it side to side, trying to get it as flat as possible. Up until this point, it was going pretty well until there was a power cut. So yeah, the weather was that bad, and from here, things only got worse. After this, I made a complete mess of it, trying to get it done in a rush. I'd made a relief cut way too close to the headlight, so I had to completely pull this off and do it again. And with the awful weather and the power cuts coming and going, I had no other choice but to leave it to the next day. Right, so current progress, I've got all of this tucked in now, and I'm not sure if the camera died, but I kept having loads of power cuts as I was trying to do this. It kept going on and off, and then it literally just completely went off, and I think I checked the camera and it was dead anyway. So down here I made a bit of a mess. What I've done is I've cut it way too deep into this bit, and then I've had to put another bit of scrap vinyl to try and hold it together, and then I've used that to kind of try and pull it up. And I've just basically pulled the whole thing up because down here you see I just cut way too deep into it and I didn't think about how wide that was. So I've kind of got away with it now. All of this has kind of managed to get tucked in here. I wrapped it around this edge, and then I think the power went out and I thought it's probably best to leave this till tomorrow to come back to it. So we're going to carry on with it, try and get all of this stuff tucked in here, trimmed off down here, and it should be alright. Right then, so on this side I didn't get quite as far as you can see on the other side, but like I say, I've left this halfway through doing it because of all the power issues. So I'm going to try and work this bit in the same as the other side, and then we'll make a very small little offcut on this side, not as big as the other side obviously, somewhere around here maybe when it's all out of the way, and then we can try and work that bit in, work the headlight in, and then we'll move on to the bottom. Right, so I'd say we've got pretty lucky that we've just managed to pull that out of the way. Anyway, now we need to carry on with this bumper, trying to tuck it in, wrap it around and get the rest of it done. I also thought it'd be a good idea to try and put an inlay on the top so that when we open the bonnet we can't really tell it's been wrapped and it matches. Now that we've got the top part done, we're going to move down to the bottom and start feeding it into the air duct. Now trying to work this in is actually quite difficult, so I had to slowly trim away with a knife and then trim the rest off with a bit of the knifeless tape. Now that was done, I moved on to the tow hook to cut around the outside and then wrap it with a bit of scrap. Now that I've got one side done, the other side was actually a lot more difficult as I had to lift the wrap up again and do another inlay on each side as I couldn't quite fully tuck it in. So in theory I probably should have put another couple of inlays on the inside, but like I say, I'm a complete beginner at this. Anyway, now I need to try and lift this up and wrap the mouth in. Right, so I fed all of this mouth now and it looks pretty good. Well, to me it looks pretty good anyway. The only issue I'm having now though is because I think I've heated up and tried to stretch it around here, all of that tension is already caught up here. So as soon as I tried to tuck this in, it just started wrinkling. It didn't look very good. So I've put an inlay in to try and take some of that tension off, which will trim off and you won't really be able to tell because it's right in that line. But now, down here, trying to feed it properly under the bottom, it's just wrinkling up and it's really tricky to get under there. So I might have to take the bumper off to try and get it properly under here, which we'll get around to in a sec. But first what we're going to do is finish each corner, get all these sensors trimmed up, get these trimmed out, and then we'll figure that out. Right, so you can see all the tension that's in this bit here and all the tension that we've got trapped in this bit. So I'm thinking it's going to be easy doing it off the car, because what we're doing when we're on the car, we're kind of trying to pull it under and kind of away from ourselves. But because we're kind of pulling it down, I think heating it up and trying to pull it down and out should be a bit of an easier way to try and take that tension out. So my thinking in doing this is that if I could pull down on the wrap instead of pulling it under, I might be able to flatten it out. But soon enough, I realised I was wrong about that. So attempting to do this, I've managed to split the wrap, which has made this 10 times harder. And of course, with no spare material, this really doesn't leave me many options. So the only thing I could think of was to try and trim the excess off, lift it back up, and then put another inlay underneath this to try and cover up my mistake. Now, it may seem a bit questionable, but I don't think we're going to see the bit underneath the bottom of the bumper. So I decided to try and break this down into 2 different bits so that I can lay that flat across it, wrap this over the top, and we won't be able to see the seam. Right, so I've done the bumper now, put 2 inlays on this bottom bit. This one goes into here, and this other bit goes over the top bit. It's underneath the car. It's a very small line, but we should be able to tell, like I say, because it's right underneath. With that inlay then, we've just managed to save it. So now we just need to put everything back together, get this bumper back on the car, do a few little finishing touches, and that's the bumper's done. Right, so finally we've done the front bumper, and that has been the most difficult part of this whole car today. We've spent ages doing this, and I think I've made it 10 times harder, because when I made that relief cut in here, trying to tuck it around, I just went way too deep in it, and as I've had to heat it up and try and pull it up around there, and I've had to follow it through with that side, it's just trapped all of that tension like in the bottom half of it, so I couldn't really wrap it into here with the bottom part too easily at all, so I've just had to deal with it, cut it off and try and piece it together with some scraps, which I think actually does look okay, believe it or not. I know camera doesn't always give like the best sort of image quality or, you know, things like that, but up front even here you can't really tell, to be fair, and underneath that bottom bit can't really tell that. Pretty clean cut along here, and inside of here when we get the new splitters on you won't really be able to tell. So let's get them out, test fit them and see how they look. And that's what I mean when I say splitters, so not just a splitter, corner splitters. I love the look of these on BMWs, and especially on these I think they're going to look great. Carbon fibre as well to go with the rear wing, so let's test fit them, get them on and see what they're like. Already these look so good. I still need to trim them down a bit. That one's a better fit than the other one, but I'm liking the look of it so far. Straight out of the box, these weren't exactly the best fit, so I trimmed them down quite a bit each side with the Dremel, and then sticking them down with a bit of tape and a bolt in the back. Right, there we go, finally got this one on then, and I've done my best to try and get them as good as I can get them anyway. They're never going to be 100% perfect fit, but I still think they look a lot better than the splitter we had on, and they're much more to my taste. Anyway, we'll get the grills in, we'll get the plate on, finish off wrapping the little bits, and we'll take a proper look. Right, so we'll start off with the indicators. So I did say we'd get back to these. I ordered some more black wrap to do them, and it's finally arrived. So we're going to get both of these done, and then we're also going to do the hood vents in black as well. So both of these are done now. I'm pretty happy with how they've turned out, to be fair. I think they look quite good. Maybe not perfect for some people, more than good enough for me. Anyway, let's get them on. Right, so I still need to cut out around here because I did think I'd have enough to re-wrap this. Anyway, I'll give it a quick wipe down. We'll heat it up around here, cut it out, work our way in, and then we should be able to just clip these back in. As well as that, I still need to make a couple of little holes down here, cut out so I can clip the badge back in. We'll do that and then we'll move on to the grills. Right, there we go. So these look pretty good. Anyway, now we'll trim this out and we'll move on to the grills. They're not here yet, so I'll move on to when they are. Right, so I ordered myself another set of grills because originally I thought about wrapping the outside bit in chrome in gloss black, but I just thought it's probably going to be cheaper and easier to buy another set. So it's exactly what I did, because these were only £15 and all I have to do is clip them in. So let's clip them in. There we go, easy as that. Now let's do the badge. Right, so what I've realised is what I probably should have done is before I put the bonnet vents back in, I probably should have put these rubber things in from the top maybe. That probably would have been easier. But I don't really feel like taking them out again in case it makes a mess of a rat trying to take them back out. So what I'm thinking I might try and do is just put soapy water on them and try and press them in. And if that doesn't work, then I'll probably just have to take the bonnet vents out again and then I can try and put these in from the other side. But we'll see how we get on. Right, lovely stuff. So now I'll put the plate on. Well, I don't really want to put this on, but we do kind of have to, don't we? Unfortunately, a bird has defecated on this car, which some might say is good luck, but to me it's just another pain. Anyway, let's move on and do the indicator. So all I really need to do now is basically clip them back in, push them in, and then the last bit of the puzzle is the mirrors. There we go, one side down. Let's do the other. It feels like it was a lifetime ago that I unclipped these. It's taken me that long to do. Looks like I might have cut this bit a little bit too short. Not the end of the world, you can't really tell. Anyway, let's do the mirrors. Right, so I was thinking about doing these on the car, but I might try and pull them off. I think they just, yeah, they literally just pull off. So we'll get them done and then we'll take a look. And despite it being so easy to take off, they were a nightmare to wrap. I probably would have been better off leaving these on the car. Right, so that's one of them done, and it was quite tricky to do like that, so probably not the best way to do it. Might have probably been easy to do it on the car, but I did want to try and tuck it in all these edges, and I just thought it'd be easier off. So we'll get this back on, we'll take the other one off, and I'm going to try it a slightly different way, and hopefully that will be a bit easier and it'll probably look better too. So we'll put this back on and get the other one off. Right, so I've had a slightly better idea with this. I've put it on an axle stand and it's pretty secure underneath. I've cleaned it down. What I'm going to do is heat like a big sheet of vinyl wrap up, and then I'm literally just going to pull it straight down onto it, and I think that's probably a better way of doing it. Don't really know, we'll have to find out. So I thought at least it's probably a worse way of doing it. That's not going to work. I'm going to approach it in a similar way, but instead of heating it up first, I'm just going to put a normal bit of vinyl over it and then just try and work my way around it. Holding it on this might be a bit easier, so. Which also didn't make it any easier. Right, so it didn't exactly work the way I thought it would. No drama though, still managed to wrap it. Anyway, let's get this back on and then we'll take a look. After quite a bit of effort, quite a few days and weeks later, finally managed to do it. And even though it's not quite Atlantis blue, I'm still over the moon with how this looks. So let's walk around it. I'll show you some of the good bits on it, some of the bad bits on it, and just kind of show you the end result. Right, so I'll start off at the front and then we'll move away around to the back. So down here, one of the worst bits has got to be the parking sensor, because I think when I was trying to open this hole up, I cut a bit too close to it. As well as that, down here on the paint, you can see, just not because of me, but how it's been painted before, the bit of overspray that's come onto this bit, it leaves a bit of a bad finish on it, not that you can really tell on camera, but it's not too noticeable to the eye anyway. And another bad thing is the bonnet, you can't really see it on camera anyway, I'm not going to lie, but there are some little specks under here, not too noticeable, but I mean, it's still kind of there. Up close you can tell, far away you can't. I feel like these spats now have made the front look a hell of a lot better. I didn't really like the other one on it. Black grills, black bonnet vents, and the indicators on it, for me, they're the right choice. Of course, everyone's going to have different taste on these sorts of things, but that reminds me of the wheels. The wheels now, they just don't sit right with me, to be honest. So I think next time, or time after, whenever we come around to it, I'm going to do something about the wheels. Of course, diamond cut wheels have never been my thing. I'm quite open about that because I just don't like the look of them. I think they look a bit factory, a bit boring maybe. It's just not my cup of tea. Right, so down this side, I don't think I can really fault it apart from this little bit here, which hasn't quite stuck down just inside of here. Not too noticeable when you're 2 meters away, so I'm not that bothered. Around the back as well, there's a little bit of wrap coming away just down here, but I mean, it is what it is. Like I say, if I was to get a diffuser for it, it would cover a lot of that up and you wouldn't be able to tell. Another thing you have to bear in mind though is right now it's the middle of winter, it's freezing cold. I've done most of this on a driveway or half in a garage by myself, and it's the first time I've done it, like I say, so it's not exactly gonna be perfect, and it was never meant to be perfect. It was more or less meant to be get one of these in Atlantis blue on, well, a budget, let's say, because it's cost me £200 to wrap it, and instead of spending what, 3 or 4 grand on a paint job, I've near enough got the same result. Even though it's not quite there, I still really like the colour it is. I mean, in a perfect world, it would be Atlantis blue. So I don't think it looks completely awful, and it probably could have turned out a lot worse. At the end of the day, you can think what you like about it. I'm happy with how it looks now. One little defect down this side is there's like a little bubble there. I could just heat that up and try and press it back in, I think. As well as that, the fuel flap, I might have to redo that because it does look a bit shoddy around the edge. I haven't really paid too much attention to it till now. And one bad thing is there are a couple of very small dings in it, and I think it's kind of highlighted by the fact it's wrapped now, and because it's such a light colour, it tends to bring a few of those defects out a little bit more. But looking down the side of it, I think it looks pretty good, and that kind of reminds me that this isn't going to be to everyone's taste, and some people are going to hate the fact that I've wrapped it and I've messed around with it, that I've put a spoiler on it, that I've put spats on it, and saying that I should have just left it alone and they liked it more before. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think I've made a complete mess of this car, or have I done an alright job for someone on a driveway, middle of winter? I think I've done all right. Anyway, leave a comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and well, I guess you could call that a wrap. So we'll leave it here for now. Thanks for watching. Make sure you've tapped down below, hit subscribe, and you'll see all the other stuff that I'm going to be doing to it. And the Audi, of course, don't worry, I haven't forgot about it. So if you do want to see anything at the Audi, I'll leave a link at the end of the video and you can have a look at that as well. Anyway, I'll leave it here for now and I'll see you next time. So I'll catch you in a bit.